Is the stream started? I think it is. Yes, we're all good. I'm gonna start with some lessons, of course. Learn to play chess. I'm at 0% because I'm a newbie. Get to know the chess pieces and how to play the game.
Chess is one of the oldest and most recognized games in the world. It is an exciting game of strategy and planning, which is why it is seen as a symbol of intelligence. However, chess is easy to learn and can be enjoyed by anyone at any level. Chess is played on an 8x8 board with 64 squares and 32 pieces, and the game is all about checkmating the king. Once the king is in checkmate, which we'll explain later, then the game is over. So to start, let's meet the king. Even though the king is the most important piece in chess, it isn't the most powerful. The king can only move one square at a time in any direction. Here are the squares where the white king can currently move. Here's one move. Now the king could move here, and here's another king move. In chess, both players have identical sets of pieces. You have a king, and so does your opponent. Each player will take turns making a move until the game is over. Now that you've learned how the king moves, it's your turn to practice moving the king.
All right, that seems pretty simple. Chess is won by checkmating, trapping the opponent's king. The king can move to any square that's directly next to it. Up, downwards, sideways, or diagonal. We're gonna do. Okay, can you move the king straight up one square to get closer to the corner? Straight up. Excellent. The king climbs up the board and now is touching the top left corner square.
Chess is one of the oldest and most recognized games.
The king is ready to move to the top left corner square. Can you move the king the king straight up to reach the square? Excellent. The king climbs to the top of the board. The king wants to move into the corner of the board. Can you move the king up one square diagonally to the right? Okay. Oh, that's not diagonally. Wait. The king wants to move into the center. Oh, the center. Okay. For some reason, I read corner. Great job. The king wants to move to another center square. This time, can you move the king to the side? One square to the right. Great job. The king wants to move to the corner square. He's touching. Can you move the king straight down to the corner? Yes. Ta-da! With the queen. The queen can move forward, backwards, sideways, and diagonally, like a king. However, unlike the king, the queen can move as far as it wants each way. The queen can move forward, backwards, sideways, and diagonally, like the king. However, unlike the queen can move as far as it wants in each of these directions.
The king might be the most important piece in chess, but the queen is by far the most powerful. Like the king, the queen can move in any direction, forward, backward, to the sides, as well as diagonally. Unlike the king, the queen can move as far as she wants in any direction.
The
The
hell?
one thing the queen can't do is jump over other pieces. Let's look at some queen
I was gonna
moves.
say that's OP.
In this position, the queen could go all the way up the diagonal. She could slide all the way across the board. She could now move all the way down here. Or she could make some shorter moves, like here, here, and here's another queen move. Earlier, we
Okay,
mentioned that the queen
that is
cannot jump
confusing.
over other pieces. In this position, let's say the queen wants to get to this square. Notice that the king is currently in the way of the queen. So the queen would have to move to another square first, and only then, on the next turn, could the queen move here. Now that you've learned how the queen moves, it's your turn to practice moving the queen.
Yeah, that is actually kind of complicated. I'm not good at checkers. This is way different. Okay, the queen wants to travel all the way to the top of the board in a single move. Can you find the move? Excellent job. Now the queen wants to move sideways all the way to the right, visiting the corner of the board in a single move. Can you? Yes. Great job. I kind of don't like how this board is. Like, it feels like you make an easy mistake on this board. The queen wants to slide down diagonal to reach the lower left corner of the board in a single move. Yes. Excellent. The queen wants to move straight up the board and reach the top left hand corner. Wait, okay, let me read it again. But there's a. Okay, so can I do this? Okay, no, I can't do that. Okay, let me read it. Let me actually just read it. The queen wants to move straight up the board and reach the top left hand corner. But with the king in the way, can you move? Wait, can you find a queen move where it can reach its goal in the following turn? How? It wants to go to the. Oh, wait, what? Left corner. I don't get it. I have to go here? Ah, okay, I see. Hello, Ryu Lopez. Hello, hello. How the hell is there a number one piece by your name? Fantastic. The queen is now ready to move. Okay, I get it. I kind of get it. The rook. Hey, a new piece. The rook can move forwards, backwards, and sideways.
After the queen, the rook is the second most powerful piece. It can move up, down, and to the sides as far as it wants, but the rook can only move in straight lines. Like the other pieces we've looked at so far, the rook also can't jump over any other piece. Let's take a look at some rook moves. In this position, the rook could move straight up, it could slide to the corner, it could move all the way down the board, now it could swing to the other side, or it could make some shorter moves, like here and here. Now that you've learned how the rook moves, it's your turn to practice moving the rook.
Okay, let's move the rook. The rook wants to travel up and reach the other side of the board with just one move. The rook would like to visit. Okay, the rook would like to visit one of the four corners squares on the chessboard. Can you find the corner square? Yes. Both rooks want to move sideways to the right. Wait, both rooks want to move sideways to the right all the way to the other side of the board. Which rook can reach the other? Okay, it's obvious. Fantastic. Both rooks want to reach the top of the board, but only one can do it right away. How can you do it? Wait, what? Yeah, let me read it. Both rooks want to reach the top of the board, but only one can do it right away. Okay, that makes sense. Wait, but why couldn't this one do it? Can it do the same thing? The rook in the lower right-hand corner is blocked by its own piece. The rook wants to move along the first rank. Can you move another piece to open up the rook's path? What the hell? Why? Yeah, I'm missing something. Uh, is it? Okay, what the hell? Okay, I'm so confused. Okay, the rook. It wants to move along the first rank. I don't know what the first rank is. Then I have to just discover. Alright, this is hard as hell. The rook in the lower right hand corner is blocked by its own pieces. The rook wants to move along the first rank. Can you move another piece to open up the rook's path? I already did this before, so it's not that. There's no reason for it to be that. Ah, okay, so I'm guessing this right here is all the first rank. So this is the first rank. That would mean this is second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eight ranks. That's what I'm gonna assume. I don't know yet. The bishop can move diagonally, like the queen, but not forward, backwards, or sideways. Each side starts with two bishops, one on a light square and one on a dark square.
The bishop is one of the most interesting pieces in chess because it can move as far as it wants, but only on diagonals. The bishop, just like the other pieces that we've met so far, cannot jump over other pieces. This means that the bishop has to stay on the same colored square it starts the game on for the entire game. In chess, you get two bishops. This bishop is called the light squared bishop because it can only travel on the light squares. Meet the other bishop that you have in the game, the dark squared bishop. It moves exactly like the light squared bishop, but only on the dark squared diagonals. Now that you've met both bishops, let's take a look at how they move.
Yeah, that's
With
cool.
just one move, the dark squared bishop can enter the longest dark square diagonal on the board. Let's do the same with the light squared bishop. Now, notice no matter how many bishop moves we make, the bishops never cross paths. They never block each other. And the reason why is because they're on opposite colored squares, so they never interfere with each other. They make a good team. Now that
Okay.
you've learned how the bishops move, it's your turn to practice moving the bishops.
Like we're gonna be doing some bishop combos in the future. Okay, the bishop wants to move to the other side of the board in a single move. Yes. Okay, the bishop looks kind of cool. The bishop wants to be on the longest light diagonal on the whole board. Okay, I don't even know what that means. Let me read that again. The bishop wants to be on the longest light diagonal on the whole board. The one that goes from the top left to the bottom right. Okay, the top left, which is right here, to the bottom right. I mean, top left, bottom right. What? Like right here? You see? Oh shoot, I'm getting it. Fantastic. The bishop can move to any square along. Okay. Ugh. Okay. The dark squared bishop. The dark squared bishop is in the corner of the board. Can you move the light squared bishop to the square directly to the right of it? have both bishops in the center. Directly to the right, yes. Easy. The bishop wants to travel to the other side and reach the top of the board in just 2 moves. Can you find a way? Hmm. It wants to travel to the other side and reach the top of the board in just 2 moves. Let's analyze this. Okay, wait. This. Oh, I'm such a pro. I think I'm gonna be the best. The knights. Holy shit, we're getting there. Okay, it looks like there's 4 knight pieces. One queen, one king, and 4 knights. Oh, and 2 bishops, of course. Before we read any of that.
The knight is perhaps the most fun piece in chess. It is the only piece in chess that does not move in some sort of straight line. It moves in a strange L shape.
The hell? Okay,
The other
that's gonna be
interesting thing about
complicated.
the knight is it's the only piece in chess that can jump over other pieces, like this. It takes a little practice to understand exactly how the knight moves. It goes 2 squares in one direction and then 1 square to the side, like
And
this.
so just now,
Highlighted
huge
are
L.
all the possible squares the knight can move to on the next turn. Notice it always moves in the same pattern. 2 to the side in over 1, like this, or like this, up 2 and over 1, or down 2 and over 1. And notice that the knight moves from a light square to a dark square, and then on the next turn it moves from a dark square to a light square. The knight
Okay.
always switches colors with each turn it makes. Now that you've learned how the knight moves, it's your turn to practice moving this fun and tricky piece.
Okay. The knight wants to reach the top of the chessboard in a single move. Go. The knights love to be in the center of action. Move the knight into the center of the board. Great job. The knight lands directly in the center. White has 1 knight in the center of the board. Move the other knight into the center. So it'd be moving like this. Great job. Both knights are now in the center. Most of the knight squares are blocked by pieces. Can you find a forward move to bring the knight into the center? It can jump, so it'd be like 1, 2, then that. Boom. The knight jumps over its own piece to enter the center. Oh, so I jumped over my own piece. Find the square for the knight that would be able to reach all 4 of the black pieces. Wait, what? Find the square for the knight that would be able to reach all 4 of the black pieces in one. It'd be like 1, 2. Would it be this? Yes. All 4 of the black pieces are one squares that the knight controls. All right, the pawn. Pawns move 1 square forward and cannot move back. A pawn may advance 2 squares on its first move. Pawns can only capture 1 square directly ahead. Okay, you can just
The
watch the
pawn
video.
sounds like it is the humblest of chess pieces, but it is really one of the most powerful. When working together, pawns are the soul of chess. Pawns have a few strange rules, so make sure to pay attention. Pawns can only move straight forward and they can only move one square at a time. However, if it is their first move of the game, they can choose to move 2 squares forward if there is nobody blocking them, as pawns cannot jump over other pieces. Remember, the pawn can choose to advance 1 or 2 squares only on the first move. On all other moves, the pawn advances 1 square. Pawns are also the only piece in chess that cannot move backwards. One other thing that makes them strange is that while they can only move straight forward, pawns can only capture diagonally, and they can only capture 1 square away diagonally even if it is their first turn. We will explain capturing in one of the next lessons. Let's see some pawn moves. In this position, since this pawn has yet to move in the game, white decides to move it 2 squares forward. Black, on the other hand, only advances this pawn 1 square. Remember, even though you can move your pawn 2 squares on its first move, you're not forced to do so. White now advances the pawn forward, and now both pawns are blocked and cannot move. In this position, how many white pawns can move? If you said 1, you're correct. Notice that this pawn is blocked by the black pawn directly in front of it. Remember, pawns cannot move backwards. White now has the option to move this pawn up 1 square. Notice this pawn cannot move 2 squares forward because the black pawn blocks it. Now it's your turn to practice using the pawns.
White pawns can move 1 or 2 squares first. Play the move that puts the pawn into the center of the board. I guess 2. White has 2 pawns. Wait, white has 2 pawns, but only one of the pawns can move 2 squares on the next turn. Which is it? It's obviously this one. Excellent. This was the first time the pawn is moved in the game, so it can move 2 squares. White has 3 pawns, but 2 of them are blocked by black. Play the only move available for white. Great job. White pawns may seem small compared to black's 2 rooks, but can you find a way to attack both in just one move? But great job. The pawn moves up 1 square and now threatens to capture the rooks 1 square diagonally away from the pawn. Okay, because they can move diagonally. I remember. I haven't learned capture yet. So I don't know if they can. They said they can't jump over. So do they land on top? Okay, white bishop is blocked from all directions. Move a pawn that opens up a diagonal for the bishop. Okay, I honestly forgot how the bishop moves. I'm going to be honest here. That's it. The pawn opens up a diagonal for the bishop, which now attacking black king. Okay. Pawn promotion. What the hell is that? They get promotions now? When a pawn reaches the end of the board, it promotes. It turns into another piece. Most of the time, players promote to a queen, but a rook, knight, or bishop is also possible. Wow, okay.
Remember, your pawns are the only pieces that cannot move backwards, so what happens when they reach the other side of the board? They get a promotion. You must trade your pawn for another piece. It can be a knight, a bishop, a rook, or the powerful queen. It cannot stay a pawn, and it cannot become a king. Also, it does not have to be one of the pieces already captured in the game. Every pawn has the potential to be promoted into a queen. You could trade it for another queen and have 2 queens on the board, which is incredibly powerful. Now, let's practice promoting some pawns.
Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Great job. You promoted the pawn into the queen, the most powerful piece on the board. Notice that newly promoted queen is now attacking the black queen, king. That means I can go over there. Nice. Okay. White has a pawn 3 squares away from promoting, and a pawn that is still on its starting square. What is the best? What is White's best pawn move to play to get quickly promoted? What is White's best pawn move? Can't be that because that's blocking. Has to be that. Yes. White's begins its pawn begins its journey journey up the board. It will take 4 more moves to promote, but the black king cannot prevent it from attacking. We have a pawn race. Both sides are trying to promote a pawn as fast as they can. Which pawn should White move to win the promotion race? Great job. White will promote first. Now let's promote to a queen. White's pawn is now queen. Notice the queen controls the promotion board. Controls the promotion square of the black pawns. Black pawn is one move away from promoting. Find the white's move that protects the promotion square and saves the game. Maybe this. Great job, black. Okay, good job. Black promotes the pawn, but the new queen is short-lived. Let's capture it and save the game. Oh, yeah, that's how to capture. Uh, White has 2 pawns. Which one can you promote quickly so that black's king won't capture it? 2 pawns. Good start. Black king is approaching your pawn. Can you promote to the strongest possible piece before black catches the pawn? Done. In hasn't. Passant. There is one weird pawn move where a pawn makes the first move up 2 squares and can be captured. Watch the video to learn more.
The last weird rule in chess is called en passant, which is French for in passing. This rule was introduced at the
En
same
passant.
time pawns were allowed to move 2 squares on their first move. When that happened, sometimes pawns would move past other pawns without giving the other pawn an opportunity to capture, which didn't seem fair. So en passant was invented. Pay attention, it's tricky. If your opponent's pawn moves forward 2 squares, which it can only do if it is that pawn's first move, and it lands directly next to one of your pawns, then on your next turn, and that turn only, you have the opportunity to capture that pawn as if it had only moved 1 square, like this. Let's take a look at that again. If a pawn is moved forward 2 squares and lands next to another pawn, that pawn can capture the first pawn on its very next move. You move behind the pawn as if it had moved only 1 square and capture it, placing it off the board. You might get some weird looks if you do this move in a game with someone who doesn't know, but it's an important rule of chess.
That's weird.
Now that you've learned en passant, let's have you try it.
Hey, it sounds complicated. White has two pawns that can advance two squares. Play the move that safely avoids en passant. Yep. Bad move this. Here, get a capture. Capture the black rook with pawn on d4. Two. Great job. Black just played f5, moving the f pawn two squares for its first turn, or its first move, attacking both white kings and rooks. Fortunately for white, there are two en passant options to capture this pawn. Can you find an en passant move that also opens up the G file for your rook? Is it this? I knew it was that one because I had a feeling because I just moved this one. That would have been the other one. Fantastic. White plays an en passant with the G pawn, which checks black's king and opens up an attack on black's queen. White will win a queen on the next turn. Okay. Capture black queen with b4 pawn. I don't even know what b4 is. Good work. Black pawns advance two squares for its first move. Okay. Is en passant the best move for white, or is there another way to capture this pawn that is better? Is there another way? Is that it? Great. White is not forced to play an en passant, which would allow checkmate in one move, and instead wins the pawn safely with check. Moving and capturing, finally. A great strategy to help win chess games is to capture opposing pieces. Most captures are made the same way that pieces normally move, but pawns capture diagonally.
You've already learned how to move the pieces, and we've mentioned the idea of capturing. Let's talk more about capturing. In chess, when you capture a piece, you simply move your own piece to the same square as your opponent's piece and replace their piece with your own. The captured piece is then removed from the board. You don't stop before the captured piece, you replace it entirely. Let's watch this queen capture a pawn. Now let's watch this knight jump over one of its own pieces to capture the queen. Capturing pieces is a critical part of the game. However, you do not have to capture a piece if you don't want to. That being said, if you can capture more of your opponent's pieces than they capture of yours, it's going to be much easier to win. One question about capturing that we haven't answered is, how do you notate a capture? Let's say in this position that you plan on taking the black queen with your queen on b3. A good idea. You would write the piece that will capture it, in this case, the queen. So we use a capital Q. You then write an X, which means captures. And then you write the square where the piece gets captured. So after queen takes e6, we would write Q, X, e6.
I'm not writing shit, buddy.
Here is one more capturing question. How do we notate a pawn capturing a rook and promoting to a queen at the same time? Does it sound complicated? Don't worry, it's just one extra step. We start by notating the capture. Remember, we mark a pawn with the file that it is currently on. In this case, the pawn is on the B file. So we would write a lowercase b, then we would write captures,
Ah,
which
that's
is
what the
an
B
X.
means. There's
So
letters right
lowercase
there
b,
and numbers.
X, and then the square that we capture, A8. So BX A8. So far, we have BX A8. Since we are promoting to a queen, you simply add to the end of your move an equal sign and then write which piece you are promoting the pawn into,
I get
which
it.
is usually the queen. So putting it all together, we would write B takes A8 equals queen. Now it's your turn to practice capturing pieces.
Okay. Can you find a capture for white? What can white capture? I can move down here. Yes. Can you find the one pawn move that can capture a piece? Remember, pawns move forward but can capture diagonally. I am a pro. Black bishop is attacking the rook on a1. How can you capture that bishop? Rook in this position, white has several captures, but only one of them is good. Can you find white's best capture? If I capture this, okay, the king can't really move that far. That's a bad capture. Up here is a bad capture because then the pawn would be able to take this. So it'd have to be this. What? The white king queen captures a pawn, but that pawn wasn't unprotected. Black's rook. Oh, okay. I would have got shut on. So I would have to capture the rook, right? Okay. Check means that a king is being threatened. A king can never actually be captured. Wait. Okay. Check means that a king is being threatened. A king can never actually be captured, so the other side must get out of check by moving, blocking, or capturing the checking piece. I don't get it.
Check is the word that is used when one piece is threatening to capture the other side's king. Check basically means look out, king in danger. Let's take a look at some examples of playing check. In this position, can you see how white can threaten to capture the black king? That's right. Bishop to f6 check. White's bishop puts the black king in danger of capture, so black must deal with this check. In the next lesson, we will learn the 3 ways to get out of check. In this position, black's rook can put white's king into danger. After rook d1, the white king is in check, and white must respond to this attack. Finally, in this position, black's pawn is ready to capture the white knight. Remember, pawns capture one square away diagonally. Can you see how white can escape the pawn's attack and place the black king into check?
No,
If you
not
found knight
really.
to g6, great job. The knight escapes danger and now puts the black king into check. One final question is, how do we notate a check? It is pretty easy. All you do is add a plus to the end of your typical move notation. This means after writing ng6, you add a plus at the end. So it'll look like this, ng6 plus, meaning that black is in check. Now it's your turn to practice playing check.
White has one check in this position. Find it first. Wouldn't it be not be that? Wouldn't be Would it be? Huh. Okay. Not that. This. Yeah, I'm not sure. This is gonna be tough. White's queen puts the king into check. How can white make it check? There we go. Can you find the only move that puts the black king into check? Move that at all. This it has to be this. The pawn checks the king and is protected by the white king. Notice the white queen can now deliver a check on e8 in the next move. Oh, okay. Black king is surrounded by pieces, but white has a powerful check. Can you find it? Hmm, not that. It has to be this. Oh, it has to be this, right? That. Black's king is hiding behind its pawns. Find the best way to attack and check. That? Nope. What this? Getting out of check. When you are in check, you must escape. The ways to get out of checks are to move the king, block the check with another piece, or capture the checking piece.
As we learned in the last lesson, when the king is in check, it must get out of check. You cannot ignore check and play another move you want to play while leaving your king in check. You have to stop the check. Luckily, you have 3 easy ways to get out of check. The simplest way to get out of check is to move your king to a square where it is no longer in check, like this. Another way to get out of check is to block the check with one of your other pieces. Oftentimes, the best way to get out of check is by capturing the checking piece. Now let's see you escape check.
Let's escape check. Who has me in check? Go. Black queen once again has the white king in check. Find a move that blocks black's check. You got it. White bishop blocks the check and saves the game. How should white check? How should white escape the check? Okay, this is my king. Okay, this is my queen. I mean, I would have the queen check their queen. White captures the checking piece, winning a queen. Notice black's king is now in check. Black's queen is checking the white king. Can you find a way to block the check and deliver a check in a single move? Have to block it. That's their queen. They're checking my king. Stronger move. Okay, the knight blocks the check and puts black king. Put black king in check with a single move. Notice white knight is protected by pawn. If black queen tries to capture it. Oh yeah, pawn can move diagonally. That's one thing I noticed difference between checkers and checkers in chess. In checkers, you can like skip over, like you hop over pieces. In chess, you have to land on top of them. Okay, checkmate. You win when your opponent is in check and cannot escape. That is called a checkmate.
If a king is in check and it cannot escape check by moving, blocking, or capturing, then the king is said to be in checkmate. That means you win. Or maybe your opponent won. Again, checkmate is the entire goal of chess. It doesn't matter who has captured the most pieces, or how long it has taken, or anything else. If the king is in checkmate, it's game over. Once the king is in checkmate, you don't have to take the king off the board. It's time to shake hands and say, good game. Now it's your turn to checkmate.
White's rook on f7 has trapped the king on the background. How can you deliver the check? That's it. That's it. This. Yep. Black's king is hiding in the corner. Oh, you little bitch. In the corner behind its pawn. Can you find a checkmate to win the game for white? Checkmate. Who would get captured if I do that? Eh, Oh, they can't move backwards. Okay. Forgot about that. Black king is trapped in the corner and cannot move. Can you find a checkmate? It, Has to be this. Yep. White can deliver checkmate in one move. Can you find it? Either those at one move. This. Nope. That. How can white checkmate? This? Nope. I get shut on that move. Okay, how can I checkmate? It's either one of these, the queen or the horse guy. I don't think it can be the horse guy. Hmm. How can I checkmate? Did this? Nope. I have to attack the black king. Protected by everything. Like what? Excellent. The knight checks the king, and since the king cannot check, escape the check, it's checkmate. This can only attack diagonally, and that can only go two pieces. That makes sense. Hey, castling. What the hell is that?
One of the most unusual rules of chess is called castling. This move was invented to speed up the game and do two things at once. When you castle, your king moves toward the safety of the corner and your rook comes toward the action in the middle. You literally are moving two pieces at once, but it counts as just one move. You can castle in either direction, left or right. In either case, your king moves over only two squares, and then the rook from that side is moved directly to the other side of the king, like this. And here's another example of castling. Let's say you're playing a game right here on chess.com. Here are two ways you can make the castling move. The first option is to drag the king to the square where it will castle, and then the rook will automatically move, like this. Another option is to click the square the king is currently on, in this case e8, and then the square where you will move the king, g8. So we click e8, followed by g8, and now we're castled. Castling is a great move with many benefits if it is used at the right time. However, there are a few conditions that may prevent you from castling. First off, you cannot castle when you are in check. You must first deal with the check before trying to castle. Secondly, you cannot castle if your king would castle through a check or after castling, your king would land into a check. Next, you cannot castle if there are any pieces in between your king and your rook. It must be completely empty. In this position, both white and black have to move one piece before they're able to castle. After knight f3 and bishop c5, for example, both sides are now able to castle kingside. Finally, you cannot castle if your king has made any other move before, or if the rook you are castling with has already moved. It must be the first move for both pieces. In this position, the only legal castling move is for black. Since white's king has already moved, white cannot castle. Notice black can only
Okay.
castle with the rook on h8 because the other rook has already moved. What is the notation for castling? It depends on if you castle kingside or queenside. In this position, let's say white castles kingside. The way you would write it is 0-0. If black now castles queenside, we would add one more 0. So it would be 0-0-0. One way that can help you remember this is notice on the king side there are two squares between the white king and the rook. Notice 0-0 has two zeros. So kingside castling, two squares, two zeros. Notice on the queen side there's three squares between the king and the rook. Queenside castling has three zeros, 0-0-0. Now that you've learned this powerful move, it's time to practice castling.
Powerful move, you say? White is ready to castle king. Great job. You castled the king to safety and brought the rook closer to the center of the board. Can you find the move to castle the white king? Since a king can't castle out of check, can you find the best way to block the check so white can still castle in the later game? So what's the check? That's it. Can you find a way for white to castle on this turn? White can't castle right now because the king would castle directly into a check from black bishop. Can you block the black bishop and prepare to castle on the next turn? That's the bishop. I have the right idea, but unfortunately this pawn isn't protected. Okay, I have to move another pawn. Holy shit, the AI looks like a goat. Playing the game. Okay, finally made it, all 13 lessons. Let's review the key moves in chess. Capture, check, and checkmate. This is how you build a lead in a game. What piece can white capture? Good choice. White captures the bishop. White's king is in check. How can you get to safety? Black bishop is checking white's king. What is white's best way out of check? Back out of here. White can check with the queen or with the rook. Which one is checkmate? Let's find several good moves in a row. Let's start off with what's best to capture. That would be a good move, but you can capture an even better piece. Queen. I can capture queen, yes. I do this. It's what is it? One, two, then that. Wait. Let's keep going. How should white escape check from black's rook? Ah, well, well played. Now you can make a checkmate by promoting a pawn. Queen, bitch. Black has no way out. White wins the game. The value of pieces. Oh, there's more lessons. I thought I was done with the lessons, but no, there's more. There, video.
In chess, you are constantly capturing pieces and making trades on the chessboard. But how do you know if you should capture or trade? Obviously, the queen is the most valuable piece, but what about the other pieces? Fortunately, there is an easy way to evaluate trades based on a numerical value for the pieces. Let's take a look. Each pawn is worth 1. You can think of this as $1 if it helps. The knights are worth 3, and the bishops are worth 3. So basically, the knights and bishops are the same, though in many positions, bishops are better, and in some positions, knights are better. Rooks are worth 5 points, and queens are worth 9. Well, what about the king? It's worth the whole game. Let's review that.
Sure.
Pawns are worth 1, knights are worth 3, bishops are also worth 3, rooks are worth 5, and the queen is worth 9. Let's take a look at a few positions and decide whether it is a good or bad idea to trade pieces. In this position, does white have any trades? Yes, white could trade a rook for a queen. Is this a good trade? Absolutely. This is a great trade for white. White gave up a 5-point piece, the rook, for a 9-point piece, the queen. White gained 4 points from that trade. In this position, white has the chance to trade a rook for a knight. Is this a good trade? White gives up a 5-point piece, capturing a 3-point piece. It's not such a good trade. White loses 2 points out of that trade. Let's take a look at one more position. In this position, white can play rook takes d8, trading a rook for a rook. Is this a good trade? An even trade isn't bad. And let's say the bishop recaptures, offering a bishop trade, and another even trade happens, bishop for bishop. After all of these trades, white did not win any material. Both sides traded 1 rook and 1 bishop each. Notice white was up a pawn before all these trades happened, so white's position is still pretty good. But was there a better way white could have handled this position? Let's take a look. When you have a chance to capture or trade pieces, remember to look at all of your options first. Was rook takes d8 white's only option to trade pieces? Look at white's bishop. White could have played bishop takes d8. White trades a bishop worth 3 points for a rook worth 5 points. Remember, it is usually a good idea to capture with your least valuable piece first. Let's say black recaptures with the rook. White now has the chance to trade rooks, 5 points for 5 points. Is this a good trade for white? You might think it's just even, but remember this idea. When you are ahead in material, it's good to trade pieces. When you are behind in material, You should avoid trades and keep the position complicated. Since white is up material, this is a good idea to trade rooks. White now has a much better endgame. White is up a rook for a bishop and has an extra pawn. Now that you've learned the value of the pieces, let's see if you can use these values to decide whether or not to trade pieces.
Okay. Let's practice capturing the most valuable pieces. You can capture the black queen, 9 points, or the black bishop, 3 points. Would you like to capture the knight, 3 points, or the rook, 5 points? Get out of here. White has two possible captures. Which one is the best? That one? This one. White can capture a queen, a rook, or a knight. Which one should you capture? Be careful and watch for black pieces defending each other. I shouldn't do that because I would lose my queen as well. I guess a queen for a queen. What this? They can't capture my thing. Good job noticing that the knight can be captured. See if you can capture an even more valuable piece. I guess this. Good work. White wins a whole rook, 5 points, and has a great position. White has some captures to examine and other ideas as well. What should you play? This one's material, but black is still way ahead. See if you can find a way to win the game immediately. This one's a queen, but black is still ahead in material. See if you can find a way to win that immediately. Let's checkmate. Finding the right move.
Now that you've learned how to move, to capture, to check, and checkmate, as well as do the special moves in chess like castling and en passant, it's time for you to feel what it's like in a real game. In a real game, nobody is there to tell you what to move. You have to think and decide, what is the right move? Should I move a piece? Or can I capture something? Should I castle? Or try to promote one of my pawns? This is where the thinking part of chess comes in, and you have to try and decide what your best move is. The only way to do this is by looking at the board and considering both your options and your opponent's possible plans, and then trying to decide which move improves your position the most. Some
Okay. What the hell? There's more?
Now, remember, if you can capture a checking piece, white only has one check each of the following positions. In considering both your options and your opponent's possible plans, and then trying to decide which move improves your position the most. Sometimes the right move will jump right out at you. Rook h8, checkmate. At other times, you'll have absolutely no idea what the best move is. Let's see if you can find a good move in each of the following positions. Black is currently up 3 pawns, so black decides to offer a trade of queens, thinking it will be easier to win the game without having to deal with white's queen. Black didn't consider what the queen was doing on the 8th rank. Can you find white's best move? The black queen gave up protection of the back rank and forgot to ask what checks white has in the position. White only has one check, but it's checkmate. If you found queen e8 checkmate, great job. This checkmate is known as a back rank checkmate. In this position, after rook a1 check, it looks like black is about to deliver a back rank checkmate. What is white to do? Well, if white decides to block with rook e1, notice that doesn't help because after rook takes e1, it's checkmate. Let's look a little closer. Can you find another white piece that can help us deal with the check? If you found the move bishop takes a1, great job. The bishop moves all the way from the other side of the board
Oh, I
to
see.
come to the rescue, capturing the checking piece. Remember, if you can capture a checking piece, this can often be the best way to get out of check. In this position, what do you think is white's best move? If you're thinking rook a8 delivering a back rank checkmate, you have to remember it's not just your moves you have to consider. We also have to figure out what is our opponent doing. In this position, white's best move is also white's only move because notice, white is in check. And in this position, white must deal with the check first and play king h1. Now black has to be careful and deal with white's threat on the next turn. In this position, can you find white's best move? Notice that we can capture a pawn with rook takes e4, but then black is able to do the same thing with knight takes a7. Remember, when you find a good move, always look for a better move. Don't forget about your pawn on a7. It's one move away from reaching the 8th rank. Do you remember what happens when a pawn reaches the other side of the board? That's right, the pawn gets a promotion. Notice the newly promoted queen puts the black king into check and threatens the knight all at the same time. After king f7, queen takes c6 wins the knight. It takes time and practice to find the best move. Now it's your turn to continue practicing finding the best move.
How should white escape the check? Oh, just capture their king queen. White's queen is in danger. Should you move it, or is there a better option? No, checkmate. The game has just started, but white already has a very strong move. Can you find a good capture? That's it. Great job. White's bishop captures the unprotected pawn and now attacks black's row, which is completely trapped. How should white escape the check? Yeah, they showed this example in the thing already. Good choice. The knight is defended by the king, so the white keeps material advantage. White wishes the black king would be in 8h1, so white could deliver a checkmate. Can you find white's best move? Not it. This Oh yeah, the king. Forgot. Oh, it's not this. Ah, fantastic. The knight escapes, but the bishop attack and forces the black king into the corner. Can you find white's winning move? Yep. The language of chess. Okay, there's a fucking language now.
In order to get better at chess, you will need to learn notation, which is often referred to as the language of chess. Every square on the chessboard has a name, which is actually just its coordinates. As we mentioned before, each column is called a file, and each row is called a rank. Every file in chess is given a letter, starting with the letter A on the left side of the board and going all the way to the letter H on the right. Every rank is given a number, starting with 1 on the white side of the board and going up to the number 8 on the black side of the board. Each square is named by its coordinate pair. Let's meet some of the squares. This square in the lower left-hand corner is known as A1. Notice we identify it with the letter first and the number second. Let's take a look and see where the E file meets with the fourth rank. Notice the arrows point at E4, so this square is known as E4. Let's draw a diagonal starting from A1 and go all the way up the board. Notice we land on the H8 square. And in between these squares, we see B2, C3, D4, E5, F6, and G7. Together, this is known as the A1 to H8 diagonal because the diagonal begins on A1 and ends on H8. Now that you've learned how to label each square on the chessboard, it's time to learn the notation of actual chess moves. Each piece has its own letter for chess notation. In this example, the king's letter is a capital K. With white to move, let's say the king is going to move to the E2 square. The way we describe that move is by saying the piece's letter first, which is capital K, then the square it moves to, E2. Remember, a piece always begins with a capital letter, and the square is always lowercase. So after the move, king E2, putting it all together, we say K, E2. Let's say black wants to play king to D7. In this case, it's the same idea. Capital K, lowercase D7. So piece, then square. K, D7. We will use the same idea for all the other pieces. The rook is a capital R, the queen a capital Q, the bishop a capital B. The knight, however, is a little bit different. Since the capital K is already used for the king, we use a capital N for the knight. For example, N E6. Finally, you may think that pawns are a capital P. In this case, pawns are only written as the square that they move to. For example, after the move E4, the notation is simply the square the pawn moved to, E4. Now that you've learned the language of chess, it's your turn to practice using chess notation.
Hey. White wants to march a pawn the board to play A5. Uh, White would like to attack a B7 by playing RD7. Got it. White attacks the unprotected b7. White wants to cut the black king off from f-file by playing rf2. So, f2. White can move two pieces to d8. Play q d8. That was d. I'm on d. Great job, d8. White can move two knights to e4. Play the knight from g-file to e4. I have learned the language, kinda. Next lesson is playing a game. Watch the video for a complete game of chess played with all moves explained.
You know the rules and how to play, but now it's time to see the ideas you have learned put into action in an actual game.
I'm gonna
In
get
this game,
shat on, aren't I?
we'll see how two pieces working together can be a powerful force, and that a king surrounded by pieces isn't always safe. Let's take a look. White begins the game with e4, controlling the center and opening up lines for the queen and light squared bishop. Black plays c6, a move we haven't seen yet. The idea is to prepare the move d5 on the next turn and attack the strong pawn on e4. White plays d4, controlling more space in the center and also opening up the dark squared bishop. Black strikes back in the center with d5, threatening to capture the pawn on e4 on the very next move. When the opponent threatens to take one of our pieces, it's natural to feel worried. Remember, it's okay to make even trades, such as a pawn for a pawn. What you don't want is to give away your pieces for nothing.
I'd move
In this
f2.
situation, white could push the pawn forward with e5, white could capture the pawn on d5, or, as in the game, protect the pawn and develop a piece with knight to c3. After d takes e4, knight takes e4, white's knight recaptures the pawn and moves directly into the center. Black now plays knight to d7,
Oh, that's a
developing a
better
knight
move.
and also preparing the next move, knight g to f6, with the idea that if the knight gets captured, black is ready to recapture the knight, like that. The drawback to this move is the light squared bishop is blocked, and also notice black's king has no moves. We'll take a look and see if that becomes a problem. White plays bishop to c4, activating the bishop to a powerful diagonal, and as you know, pointing at the weakest point in black's camp, f7. Black plays knight g to f6, attacking white's knight, and white plays knight to g5, avoiding the knight's attack and joining the light squared bishop in attacking the f7 square. In this position, black should play e6, blocking the light squared bishop's path to the f7 square. But black does not have a sense of danger in the position and plays h6, attacking the knight and assuming that it's going to move backwards. Can you find the move that immediately wins the game for white? That's right, bishop takes f7. White delivers checkmate, threatening to capture the king on the next turn, and notice black's king is surrounded, or should we say smothered, by its own pieces. It cannot escape the attack. You've learned a lot so far. Can you put your ideas into action?
No.
Let's prove it in the challenges.
Oh my god, I'm about to get shat on. Holy shit. Let's open a game by moving the pawn in front of white's king 2 moves ahead. Okay, so I'm not even playing myself. Great job. Push another pawn to the center. Excellent work. Now white has two pawns in the center. Black is starting to capture white pawn on e4. Can you find a move that develops in knight and protects e4? One of these motherfuckers are a knight. Not it. That's it. Guess it's this knight. Yeah. Can you develop a bishop to attack the f7 target and help control the center? Seven. And it gets shut on. Ah. Attack the f7 target and help control. 7 f. What the hell is the bishop again? Thought that was the bishop. Yeah, it gets shut on if I did that. Ah, okay. Can you move e4 knight to safety and join the bishop to c4? E. This is the e4 knight to safety and join the bishop on the c4 and on c4 and attacking the f7 square. Okay, I already did that move, but what the hell? f7. Okay. Looks like I have not learned the pieces or the names quite yet, the language. Black attacks white knight with can win in one move. That's it. There we go. Stalemate. Stalemate occurs when there are no possible moves, but neither king is in check. Stalemate is a draw, even if one of the players has many more pieces on board.
There is another kind of mate on the board called stalemate. Stalemate is what happens when your king is not in check, but you also have no other legal move on the board. And when this happens, it's a draw and nobody wins. You might be absolutely winning your game and about to checkmate the opponent's king, but if you fall into stalemate, it's a draw. This is best explained with some examples. In this position, with white to move, the game would be a stalemate, because white's only piece, the king, does not have any legal squares to move to, and white is not in check. In this position, let's say white plays queen to c2. The queen gets one square closer to the king, But notice black's king is not in check and black does not have a legal move in this position. The position is a stalemate. Remember, in chess, you're never forced to make an illegal move, so black cannot put the king onto a square where it would be captured. In this position, can you find a better move for white? White can actually win the game in just one move after queen b2 checkmate. Remember, your opponent can never be in stalemate if they are in check. In this position, black looks doomed. The king is trapped in the corner. White is ready to deliver checkmate on the next move, and black is down lots of material. However, chess is a game of many opportunities, and even when things look really bad, you might have the chance to save the game, or at least draw. Notice that since black's king does not have any legal moves, if black's queen disappeared from the board, it would be a stalemate if it were black to move. In this position, can you find a way to make black's queen disappear and create a stalemate? If you found queen takes h2 check, great job. White must deal with the check, and the only way to get out of the check is to capture the black queen. Now the only remaining piece is the black king, and since black's king does not have any legal squares, and black is not in check, the game is a stalemate. What a save by black. Let's take a look at this position. If white played the move queen to c7, it's not a very wise move because white, first of all, could have won the game immediately with queen to b7 checkmate, but also queen to c7 traps black's king. But does that mean it's a stalemate? Not in this position, because notice black has another piece. Black could play the move h3, allowing white to correct the mistake from the last move and deliver checkmate with queen to b7. Notice if we added another pawn, just this pawn on h3, the position would now be a stalemate with black to move. Now that you've learned about stalemate, remember to stay alert and avoid it when you're winning, and when you're losing, keep your eyes open for the opportunity to save the game with stalemate.
Okay, it's challenge. What can white play at the end game in a stalemate? Good job. Black pieces cannot move, so the game ends in stalemate. White looks doomed, but can you find a way to save the game with a stalemate? Good job. White's pawn delivers check. Since white's king does not have any legal move, no matter what black does next, white will save the game with stalemate. In this position, is this position stalemate if it's not, find a legal move for white. Good work. Black won't be able to stop the b7 pawn from promoting. Black is trying to promote g pawn, but white can immediately end the game with a stalemate. How would you do it? Want that pawn to promote? It, what the hell? Can I prevent this guy from promoting? So I don't want to move the black. Thought that'd be it. How the hell do I prevent that? Yeah, this is getting harder. Black is trying to promote the G pawn, but white can immediately end the game with a stalemate. How would you do that? I would have to put my piece in a way for there to be no legal moves left. Yeah, I'm actually not sure. There's nothing the king can do. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. Black can't move. The game ends in a stalemate. Oh, I can't black move. Can't they just, capture my piece right here? No, since these can capture diagonally. Black king, Black's king is trapped in the corner, and Black's pawn is checking White's king. Can you find me the only white move that can avoid stalemate? Other draws. How far? Okay.
Stalemate is just one of the possible ways to end the game in a tie. Another way is to simply agree to a draw. This might happen if neither player can see a way to victory. One person offers the draw, and the other can accept or decline. Another way to get a draw is if the exact same position is repeated 3 times. After 3 repetitions, either player can claim a draw when it is their turn to move. Or, if you're playing online, a draw will automatically be called after 3 repetitions. Another way to draw is if neither player has enough pieces to checkmate, like lone king versus lone king. You'll learn more about this later. Finally, you can also draw if 50 pairs of moves have been played on the board without any captures or pawn moves. This keeps you from dying of boredom as you and your opponent move your rooks back and forth forever. Now it's your turn to practice drawn positions.
You have entered a completely drawn game. Can you find the move that immediately forces a draw for white? That's not it. This is this. Where you trade, and then there's only two kings. It looks like white is losing, but can you find a way to block the position so no pawn move can be made by either side? There you go. White is down a rook out for a pawn, but the pawn is one move away from promoting. Can you find a trick that forces a draw? Fantastic. White's rook is under attack, and black is ready to promote the pawn into a queen. Can you find a sacrifice that forces a draw? The white rook sacrifices itself for black's pawn, and a king and a bishop cannot create a checkmate without other pieces. So the game is draw. Why can't a king and a bishop create a checkmate? That's weird. White is down material, but can force a repetition by making a series of checks that black can escape. How would you do that? That's not it. Black soon wins the game. Okay, if you don't do that, then so this. Oh, yeah, I don't want to move it there. Okay. Great start. Which save queen check will force black? Okay. Which save queen check will force black's king back into g8? I want to go here, but I just have to play. No. Oh, what the hell is that? What the hell? Okay, I don't want to go there. If I do this, their king checks me. There. Opening principles.
Control the center, and you can control the game. We may have heard that it's important to control the center and develop our pieces as close to the center as possible, but what exactly does this mean? The center squares are e4, d4, d5, and e5. A popular as well as strong opening move for white is to play e4. White moves a pawn directly in the center, controlling the d5 and f5 squares in black's territory, and it also opens up lines for white's light-squared bishop and queen to quickly enter the game. A good response for black is to play the same move, e5. By controlling the center, both sides prevent enemy pawns from entering their territory. If white tries to force two pawns in the center with d4, threatening black's pawn on e5, it's important for black to break up white's pawn center with e takes d4. When white's dreams of taking over the center with pawns have been shattered, so black should not have any serious problems in the opening. Is the center really that important to control? What happens
Yes.
if black wants to move pawns on the edge of the board, such as a6? Pawn moves are important when they can control key squares, especially in the center, and when they open up lines for pieces to enter the game. This move does not control an important central square, and it only allows the rook to move to a7, not exactly improving black's position. Since black does not want to control the important center, don't be shy. Let's take the center for ourselves with d4. White's pawn duo control key squares in black's camp, c5, d5, e5, and f5, making it difficult for black to activate pieces on these squares. If black continues to make meaningless pawn moves such as h6, black has no central control, and besides the pawns, only 4 pieces can move. The knights, which were already able to move at the start of the game, and each rook only has 1 square. Not a good start to the game for black. White's pieces, on the other hand, enjoy great freedom. White's queen and 2 bishops enjoy open lines, and white's knights are ready to jump into the game with a move like knight f3. What happens if black wakes up from a deep sleep and decides to start developing pieces toward the center with knight to c6? Pieces need pawns in the center so they are not constantly attacked. Since black does not have a pawn on d5, white can simply march forward with d5, grabbing space and attacking black's knight, forcing it to waste time by moving again. Black should admit the mistake and retreat the knight, but instead decides to move the knight to the edge of the board with knight a5. Most pieces do not like being on the edge of the board, and the knight is especially weak as it only controls 4 squares. Compare this to white's knight on f3. It controls 8 total squares, twice as many squares as black's knight on a5 controls. More importantly, black's knight doesn't have any safe squares, so white can attack this poorly placed piece with b4. If black does nothing, white will simply win a piece. So after knight c4, black's knight has already moved 3 times, and white can now develop a piece and win the knight with bishop takes c4. Black is in serious trouble, but should at least try to prevent white's central pawns from advancing with d6. Instead, black plays knight f6.
Oh shit.
Knights love to be close to the center of the board, but you have to prevent enemy pawns from attacking them. Since black has not controlled the center with pawns, how can white gain space and attack black's knight? That's right, once again by advancing a center pawn with e5. Black should once again retreat the knight, admitting another mistake, but decides to lunge forward with knight g4. Notice most of black's escape squares are controlled by pawns. Even black's pawn on h6 prevents a potential knight retreat. How can white win more material? If you found h3, nice work. If black takes the e5 pawn, white simply captures it with the knight on f3. If black plays knight takes f2, at least grabbing a pawn before losing the knight, white should not be afraid to move the king. Let's win material with king takes f2. By controlling the center with pawns and actively developing pieces toward the center, white took advantage of black's careless play and is simply up 2 pieces with an excellent position. Now it's time to practice taking over the center in the challenges.
All right. That sounds not complicated at all. I got all of that. I got every single thing. That's what I meant to do. Great job. We do not want to allow white to have 2 pawns in the center. Can you find a strong capture that removes one of the white's pawns in the center? Strong capture. Okay, this right here. Yeah. Uh, how can white grab control of the center by putting a pawn directly in the middle of the board? Great job. This is one of the excellent moves that. Now let's play another move. That's it. You have taken control of the center and your opponent failed to take black's fair share of the center. How can we take more space in the center by placing another pawn right in the middle of the board? Nice work. Okay, let's just capture you, buddy. How can white attack the black knight? can we attack the Black Knight? Like right here would be good. Nope, not it at all. Okay. How can white attack the Black Knight? Right here? Yep. Star White can continue to attack the knight with pawns. How would you do that? Pawns, you say? That pawn, that would kill me. Yep. The knight is still vulnerable. How can you attack it with the pawn again? How can white occupy the center with two pawns? How can white advance a pawn to trap a black knight? What piece can capture a knight? This one, right? Oh shit, I'm becoming a pro. Develop your pieces. No, not today. Not ever. You've reached the weekly what? Oh, this game's pay to win, bro. That's crazy. Chess is play to win. Uh, can I play bot? I want to okay, play a bot. Yes. T-Rex. Yeah, we go for Velociraptors. I'm gonna do that. A pack of Velociraptors. Approach. Scree hiss. Okay, I don't need that much help. Oh hell no. Okay, need to protect my guy. Yes. Okay, I did not notice that. Maybe we're not so good at this game after all. We don't want to do that. That. Um, can't shit on that. You would take that. The hell just happened? The raptors leap towards their prey. They won't be denied. Oh, my king is unprotected. Okay. Yeah, this guy's just taking all my shit. Or what can I take? I can't take anything except you. Get the fuck out of here. Um, that said something. What just happened? Did I just get shadowing? I just got shat on.
The opening didn't go your way, but it's one of the easiest things to fix with a bit of review. Opening with the king's pawn controls the center and opens up the light-squared bishop and queen, often leading to sharp games. Capturing your hanging pawn. You've just allowed your pawn to be taken without a fight. You allowed the opponent.
Okay.
You
fuck that.
permitted the opponent to force eventual checkmate.
I don't need this. Um, the hell just happened? Yeah, I placed my piece right in front of theirs. That's what happened. That's okay. I want to put that there. One, two, that. He captures that. Okay, I got shadowing. Okay, this is gonna be hard, eh? Restart. So, queen, I think. What the hell are you coming from? Oh, I can't move my anything. my king at least. You there. I want a rematch. Yeah, I'm very horrible. It seems. Took center. That's fine. Okay, I did not know that was a thing. Look out of here. Oh! The hell is that? Okay. Eventually I'll win a game. I do that, he takes that. Gotta watch his pieces. How does this piece move? Could take that. He, his horse would take my piece though. If he takes this, I can take that. Let's move my horse. Okay. Back out of here. Yeah, get out of here. What the hell? Get the hell out of here. Um, get out of here. Okay, it's all fine. You take my king if I do that. Let's go here. Yeah, I'm risking you. What? Keeping you there. With you. Yeah, I gotta watch this one. It could skip pieces. One, two, then that. It's their piece. One, two, there. Could take that. I don't care. can move this. Okay, maybe I should have left it there. Capture my. I have to move my king. Move him there. Get out of here. I set myself up. How does that one move? There we go. I have pawns. I'm surrounded. Hold on, how am I surrounded? Ah, that. Yeah, I did better. Yeah, I did not notice that at all. We'd be able to take that. Two pieces. to move. Let's move you here. It allowed this to get captured. Here, let me check. So I could capture this. The pawn. There's no point in capturing that. Do that. Thought I'd be able to move here. That'll get captured. I didn't mean to do that. Do that. That will get captured. There we go. But let's keep trading. Getting blocked pretty well. Awful. Um, I can move it here. Yep, my queen there. No! I did not mean to do that. The king. Take that. What do you do? Okay, I got shut on again. You take that. This can take that. That's not good. That gets taken. What the? Oh, I was not paying attention. I'll take this. to move that. Wow, I'm getting shat on over here. Okay. Is in danger. Oh, that was horrible. Maybe the Velociraptors were just too hard. To move my people into a trap. Sacrifice. Yeah, okay. I move him, this piece dies to that. About that. Bye. Okay, the T-Rex is way easier than the Velociraptors. No, I did not mean to do that. I just wanted to check how this guy can jump, so I can take this piece. This piece right here. Wait, hold on. If I do that, that one would take my horse. Try that. Then take that. Goodbye, horsey. Yeah, that was a bad play, actually. That was a very bad play. I'm not gonna restart it. To that, he can take that. Can this guy move backwards? Right down here. Sacrifice him. Oh, he didn't want to make it play. Oh, here with the horsey? I take that. That die, basically. Can't jump over stuff with that, I forgot. Oh, this. Oh, then I lose this piece. He got me. I did not see that. He is right. That guy's cooking right now. Ooh, but he can take that. Ooh, okay. Didn't know. But yes, get out of here. Ooh, will you fall for it? Okay, don't fall for it. Okay, there. Boom. Trapped. Let's see. Okay, this motherfucker's not playing around. See that? Okay, gotta get my horse guy far, far away. Oh, mate, hell no. What? Okay, what? No. Trap. I do a counter trap. I take that, he takes that. But I start moving horses. Sacrifice a horse or a pawn. And I can steal his next pawn. That sounds terrible. What do you do if I do this? Oh shit, what the fuck is that? Get out of here. That piece will take my other piece. Anything not risky. Gotta do it. Oh, bitch. I'm not gonna do that. Leave that there. benefit of doing that. Not a single piece that I can take. Take that. He just my queen. I don't want to lose my queen. Do that. Boom. One, two. Oh, he can take that. My queen is actually safe if I move it here. I don't know how that piece moves. That piece, if I take that, that'll be risky. Lose my horse. Yeah, that is not good. I didn't figure that one. I didn't notice that. Yeah, I didn't mean to do that. Yeah, I'm gonna go back because I didn't mean to do that. About that. You. Another queen. Set you up in the corner. face that chest like this. Will I fall for it? Boom, bitch. Set up two corners. Yep, that came there. Put him into a trap. There we go. Uh, Checkmate. We get another queen with this queen right here. Out of here. Bro really wants my horse dead. What now? My God, just die. Do that. Ah, won. Ah, got him. Okay, getting better. Getting better. I still don't really know what a lot of the pieces do. I know that these just move up and they can capture diagonal. One, two, okay. I captured that. Oh, tough. This will capture that, but I can capture that, and I can capture that. I let's do that. I have to move this or capture. Okay, let's do that. Out of here. See how that piece moves. I want to sacrifice a pawn. And a horse or a pawn. And my horse died anyway. I was not paying attention to that. How does that one trouble? A lot of pieces are trapped. Let me start moving my horse. Use another horse if I did that attack. So we get captured. That would take that. Yeah, I did not notice that. that. Sacrifice. Sacrifice that one. I gotta move my king. Yeah, that was a smart play by them. I thought they were gonna do that. Um, I lose my queen. Boom. Their queen's gone. Do that. I didn't know it could do that. What do you do? Uh, I could give up one queen. One again. All right, we should switch AI. T-Rex is pretty easy. The Velociraptors were hard. Okay, get out of my game. Where's it? Take out. Oh no, I can't put my horse there. Up here. I'll get on for a horse. Oh, another pawn. Oh no, why did I do that? Okay. Hey, what? I just lost. A rematch? I think I closed the screen already. Okay, the Velociraptor is much harder. Getting shat on. Let him take my horse. That'd be dumb. back down there. So that can travel right there. Some horse on horse support. Yeah, this down is we're talking a lot of shit. I take that. That would just take me. Out of here. Oh! I didn't notice that. For some reason, I didn't even look at that. My queen.